I'm Anthony Kay, and this is Sports Fluent. This week, we're talking with World Series champion Gregg Zaun. He's going to give you his thoughts on the 60-game MLB season. Then to the NHL, where I'm going to give you my first-round predictions, and as a bonus, this year's Stanley Cup champion. Then to the NBA for part 4 of our GOAT series, Jordan or Lebron. This week, we're looking at statistics. And we're going to start a new weekly segment on the WNBA. We're going to be previewing every team before the season kicks off. This week, we're starting with the Atlanta Dream. Then, in the fix, we're talking NFL and why not the Washington Redskins should change their name. Stay tuned for that.
And I'm here with my good friend Gregg Zaun. Greg, how you doing, buddy?
I'm doing well, trying to stay cool in all this hot Toronto weather.
You know, I never can complain about it being too hot. One, because I lived in Arizona, and it's never that hot. Two, I complain all winter long, and I don't have to shovel heat. So I'm not going to complain about that. So I've got you on. Hope that you're doing well. There's some big news out of baseball. You're the guy that knows it way better than I do. So I'm going to jump right in and ask you, are we going to be playing baseball this year?
My gut tells me no. And that's sad. It's going to, a cancellation of the season is going to do serious damage, maybe even worse than the strike of 94, or the lockout, whatever you want to call it. It's going to come down to everybody's whining about money. This COVID thing happened. It's a reality. I've been on both sides of it. I was a union member for 16 years. I was a player rep, an executive subcommittee member. I've argued against my union brothers because I thought, you know what, this doesn't make any sense to me. I've argued for them. I've sat in those meetings and gone head to head and face to face with ownership. And I understand both arguments, but, for someone to suggest to me that they deserve more than a day's pay for a day's work, then it doesn't make any sense. With regards to people that are worried about health of themselves and loved ones, certainly take whatever precautions you need to take, including refusing to play because you feel unsafe. My guess is that most people who either have compromised immune systems or live with somebody who has a compromised immune system already live a lifestyle that takes measures they put measures into place to keep themselves safe. And it comes down to, what are you really fighting for? In my opinion, what's going on right now, and this is just my opinion, I think the union understands that there was going to be a nasty fight with ownership because going back to the last collective bargaining agreement, you had a bunch of players, a bunch of entitled, snowflakey, millennial, whatever you want to call them. They spent more time during the last collective bargaining negotiations working for creature comforts. They were more worried about their own, should we have a massage therapist or, this creature comfort or that creature comfort, instead of continuing to set the parameters for a healthy free agent market. And so for that reason, and it's well documented, you see for the first time in a long, long time, players' wages, free agent wages actually going down by percents instead of up. And that's all due to the stance that they took during their last round of negotiations. So they've made the bed that they're lying in right now, and I don't feel sorry for them one bit. They caused the free agent market to be less than what they expected it to be because of what they were actually fighting for last round. So I'm sorry. You made your bed, lie in it, deal with it. But what we have is a generation of players whose parents have fixed all of their problems for them their entire lives. You know what I'm talking about. It's, oh, really? Let me fix that problem for you. What, the coach doesn't like you? We'll switch teams. What, you have problems at school? Let's switch schools. They screwed it up, and the owners laughed the whole time. They screwed up the last collective bargaining, the CBA, and now they're dealing with the ramifications. But what they want is they want the owners to say, oh, okay, we'll fix it for you. So no, they're going to go and they're going to fight. And now the players have a big fight on their hand. So the long and the short of it is they're saying to themselves, well, we've already lost a huge amount of this season. Why not take the stance now that we're going to have to take in 6 months when we start negotiating the next CBA? We've already screwed up this season. Let's just go ahead and screw it completely up and make our stance now. They're going to take their stand now. This is what I believe, in my opinion, is happening.
So I've said this, and I say it actually from both sides. Like, this really isn't about as much about this season or even the COVID, what it's done to this season. This is all both of them positioning themselves for the next CBA, right?
I agree with you 100% when you said it. And I was trying to say that, but you just did it really quickly and more eloquently than I did. I'm a little wordy sometimes. But yeah, this is exactly what it is. They knew they were going to have to make a stand, so they're doing it now.
Yeah. And how familiar are you with the proposals that have been going back and forth? Like, when we see the first one, from the public's eye, the first one where owners were saying, hey, it's going to be prorated for how many games you played, plus we're going to knock off this percentage based on how much money you make. That one looked very unfair to the players.
I agree with you.
Since then, they've obviously done some back and forth. Are you familiar with it? Has it gotten better? Is it a fair deal now? And now the players, again, like I said, are they just positioning themselves? Like, do you feel like the newest one is fair?
Well, I haven't, to answer your question, I haven't read every inch of it. I haven't read it all. For me, the only deal that's fair is prorated salary, period. If you play 60 games, you get 60 games worth of what your salary was negotiated. The ownership, they have an obligation to pay the players, and if they show up for work. So, like I said, if there's 60 games, what's 60 games worth? You know what 10 million divided by 162 is, or actually 10 million divided by 180, because you get credit for service time. The season's actually 180 days long, even though there's 162 games. So go based on games played, days of service, whatever it may be. Yeah, that's the only way that it's fair. Then you look at
seems
postseason.
Very simple, right?
It does, right?
So why are they over? Who's overcomplicating it? And is from the owner's perspective, is it in their best interest in some cases is it better for them not to play? Do they save that much money with their salaries by not playing? Isn't the lost revenue worse? Does it affect their TV deals? Like, what else goes into that?
You got to ask yourself, what's the legal language behind the television deals? Because I can tell you right now, TV is what pays the bills. The ticket sales 100%. And the concessions and parking, that's a pittance. That doesn't mean anything. Go look at the Yankees deal with Yes Network. Good grief.
For sure.
That's where the money's made. In fact, I would be surprised if the Yankees organization couldn't turn a profit, if they didn't turn a profit. And this is after they pay the salaries of the players. If they could pay all their employees, their players and everything else, if nobody showed up to watch the Yankees in person, if everybody just watched them on television and that deal was still, lucrative for both sides, I bet you the Yankees could still be a profitable organization without fans in the stands. And there are probably a handful of other people out there that could do it as well. So I look at it like this. How many games are how long is it going to take to get the players ready? What's a realistic number of games? To me, anything less than half the season is a waste of time. It's an absolute waste of time. The stats are going to be skewed. It's a complete waste. So figure out even if you have to play doubleheaders every weekend, to get your 81 games in. Get your 81 games in. Pay the players half their salary. Don't even mess around with the postseason. Just do it. Even if you have to do it in a place where there's dome stadiums, so you can play deep into October, maybe into early November. But short of that, you know what? Both of you dig your heels in, go do your fighting, figure out what the next collective bargaining agreement looks like, and don't waste the 2021 summer. Get it over with now, and make it take advantage. I mean, if you can say this, take advantage of COVID. It's ruined the season in my book. So
do you think it's in their best interest then to, as much as, here's my fear, as much as, let's say, just forget this season, work on the CBA, and come back next spring training and do it right, do a full season. Like, that's very idealistic. But wouldn't no baseball this year hurt a sport that's already kind of hurting from a fan base perspective? Like, do you think it'll be out of sight, out of mind? Or do you think, hey, if they get it right and fix it, they can come back and kind of recoup those losses?
Well, I'm going to disagree with you and say they're hurting it from a fan base. They generated $9.5 billion last year. So I don't care how they did it. They did it. The game is fat and healthy. I think, they could make a few changes, namely the commissioner. Some of the things that they've been trying to do to the game are ruining the game, in my opinion. But they're making a ton of money. And honestly, they don't care how they're doing it. They're making money.
From a money perspective, sure. Yeah.
They don't care.
I'm with you there.
It's fine. It's fine and dandy. The fans are going to be PO'd one way or the other. There's no getting it. But when people say, "Oh, the pace of game is too slow," the fans don't like it. Kids nowadays don't have the attention span. You need this. No. People still watch baseball. They're going to watch baseball. Baseball is a great sport. It's the pace of the game is almost the best thing in the world, nowadays, because everybody needs to disconnect. Just turn everything off and slow down for a couple hours. Let the pace of the game give you that break from real life that you want. But
it's
with regard,
I'm going to jump in quickly and say it's funny that people do complain a lot about the pace of the game and it being slow. But I'll use Toronto as an example. But every time Toronto has a good team and they're in the playoff hunt, there doesn't seem to be a shortage of fans in the stands.
Well,
right? It's always a problem when your team, no offense, but when your team stinks, the pace of play seems to be a problem.
Exactly. Nobody cares. It's always been about winning. It always will be about winning. There's some things that need to change. But the Buster Posey rule of running over catchers and not being able to take guys out at second base and, pitch clocks and all this other nonsense. I mean, come on, keep it within reason. You can't change the nature of the game because the attention span of the population has diminished because of these stupid smartphones. I mean, come on. It's a great game. It's a great game the way it is. You know what? Unjuice the balls. Stop making up these ridiculous rules about, you can't steal signs with your cameras, but you can use computers and all these other electronic gizmos to increase your chances of winning. I mean, it's such hypocrisy. It is what it is. The fans, baseball fans love baseball fans. And you know what? The game a number of years ago incorporated the metrics, the geekdom, so to speak. The guys that now people who never played the game enjoy the game because they can digest the numbers. They can dive right into it and feel like they understand the game in a way that the intellectuals, the people that never played the game, who never could, but now they can. They can quantify things. It's a healthy game. It really is. There's some things that need to be tweaked, but I think the game's healthy. I think that losing the season is going to suck. It's going to do harm. There's no doubt about it, because everybody's going to look at it and they're going to say, "Oh, greedy this, greedy that. They couldn't get it together, and meanwhile, I didn't have nothing to watch on TV."
Yeah,
that's basically what it's going to come down to. The harm is being done right now. It will get a little bit worse, but you know what? Look at what happened to the game after '94. The '98 home run race with Sammy Sosa and Mark McGwire. Something will happen, and the fans will come back because they always have, and they always will.
So in your opinion, I'll end it with this. You don't think it's coming back. If they do come back, they got to play at least half the season, so 81 games. Do you know if there's a drop dead kind of date to get 80 or so games in? Like, what would they have to kind of? Because I'm worried. If you're going into, as you mentioned, into October is okay, but if you're going into November or later, you can't. It's tough to play outdoors when there's snow falling. Like, you're going to have to do something.
Well, that's why you make certain concessions. So 81 games. This would be assuming they never had a day off. And if you ask me, there's way too many days off anyways. So let's say that it would take 11 and a half weeks, so round it up to 12. Take 12 weeks to play 81 games. So that's 3 months. So let's say August, September, October. And then you move, and we haven't even talked about getting into July. They could probably be ready to go mid-July. And I might be a little aggressive when I say 81 games, but I did say I wanted to see doubleheaders. They should be playing one doubleheader every single weekend if you're going to do this right. So you talk about playing, get one day off a month, get yourself an extra game every weekend. You might be able to do this in 3 months, and then you do a shortened playoff system and giddy up. But you're probably going to have to do it in a place like Tampa, Toronto with a dome, someplace with a retractable dome. You might be able to get away with it in Seattle. I'm trying to think who else has a dome stadium these days. But you might have to make certain concessions about it because of weather. Plain and simple.
Right.
If you really want to make it happen, cool, then do it.
But you're saying, so 80 games, doubleheaders every week, 1 day off a month. We're trying to give the solution. We'll send it into Rob. And maybe the playoffs just go back to like division winners? Eliminate some of those extra wild cards so you can shorten it a bit? Yeah. Yeah.
And what I would do, and they've already started going towards this, and this is what my plan for I've been talking about this plan forever. Get rid of the pitchers hitting, DH in both leagues, balance the schedules so that you don't have interleague play anymore, because interleague play is significant with regards to wild cards and all that other stuff. But you balance the schedule. Everybody has a DH, and then all of a sudden at the end of the year, you have a very, very justified scenario where everybody's played the teams the same amount of times, so that it's a fair schedule. Yeah. And then you go with just straight up division winners. And this year would be the ideal place to do that. In fact, you could give every team, do the National League off on Wednesdays, do the American League off on Thursdays, take a day off every single week, but you make up for it with a doubleheader on Saturday or Sunday, and you get your games back, and then you're done in 3 months. You get your 80 games in 3 months. Maybe you want to drop it down to 72 games? Okay, drop it down to 72 games, but you'd still do it in 3 months easily. Playoffs,
I think the last one I saw was like 62, and you're right. That you're getting almost too short then. If you're going, I don't think you can go any less than that for sure.
Well, let's assume that we got to go back to 16 teams and 14 teams, because we have to balance the schedule and give them an even number of games. Let's call it 72. So you got 72 games to play against 15 other teams. So 1 second here, I've got my trusty calculator out. 72 games divided by 15. That leaves you 4.8 games against each team. So it's a home and away. One series is a 2, the other one's a 3, and there you go. And then on the 14 side, if you do 72 games divided by 13 teams, because that's the opposition, you're looking at basically a 3 and a 3, or a 3 and a 4 could be. So it could be done. It could be done easily, but you got to balance the schedule. You got to get rid of pitchers hitting. You can't do interleague play. All those kind of things would be disastrous to try to figure out, because even if you go with status quo, you may not play a team that's in your league at all. You may not play them with this short season.
Yeah.
You know, if you just basically start the season based on what they've already calculated, you might miss the best team. Like the Toronto Blue Jays may only have to play the Yankees 3 times, which how can you determine a true division winner if you're not playing the best team an equitable number of times with opponents?
A lot. Well, I guess that's why they're paid the big bucks. They're going to hopefully figure it out. And I do want to ask you. Sorry, 2 more questions. Sorry if you have a quick time. The one is going to be about the big players, right? The superstars who get paid the money this season. If it doesn't happen, we're going to assume they're going to be okay. How does this affect the younger guys or the minimum salary guys or the ones that are just trying to come up? Will it hurt them a lot to kind of miss this season, whether it be from a financial standpoint or from a baseball standpoint? How does it affect them?
Well, look, you're missing a full year. I can think of a bunch of guys, and I could tell you from my own personal standpoint, missing a year in the middle of my career when I was injured and coming off the surgery would have been a blessing in disguise. So a lot of different ways to look at it. There's some guys that probably could use the break. There are some guys that definitely are at the pinnacle of their career that are going into free agency, like a guy like Mookie Betts. I think he has 1 more year left on his deal. He's with the Dodgers. How are you going to be able to truly gauge what he deserves as a free agent with having not played this year? Like it's gonna seriously wreck the free agent market.
Would they, if they don't play the year, would they carry it over?
No. Those guys become free agents immediately.
Oh wow! Yeah.
Which means that all the players that they sent back to Boston, who are still under team control, that ends up being a tremendous deal for the Dodgers the Red Sox, because they still have players under control. The Dodgers are the ones that end up getting
basically
hosed. Exactly. Yeah. You got them for nothing, and you're going to lose Mookie Betts anyway.
Well, unless you re-sign him because he wants to be there, but who knows based on all right, so I'll leave it off with your stuff. So the Gregg Zaun Baseball Academy, how are things going there?
Well, we're dealing with the same things.
Are you doing any kind of virtual training? Have you kind of gone that route?
Oh yeah. No, I've got my own training app. I've got my own everything. I've got hours and hours and hours of baseball instruction, fitness instruction, mental skills training. All of it's online. It's prepackaged, ready to go. I can adjust it to all levels of playing and coaching. My team, I've done a ton of virtual stuff. We do weekly Zoom meetings. They have access to the app, so when they're hitting off the tee or they're doing their throwing work, they send me videos every week, via Instagram chat or whatever. We've taken advantage of all the technology, and I've been able to coach them from a distance all throughout this whole thing. And believe it or not, a lot of them have made some huge progress, which is great. It's just a matter of reps and educated, watchful eyes. I've not stopped coaching these kids for 1 second. We took our March break and COVID madness happened, and I continued to hold these boys accountable. They hold each other accountable. They get their work in. They're present and send it to me, and it's great. So I've been able to continue coaching these kids. I can't even imagine what would have happened, prior to the internet. That would have been a disaster for these boys. When you're learning something new, you need a coach to keep his eyes on you to make sure that you don't get off track. One bad rep turns into 2, and then 4, and then 8, and 16, and before you know it, you've created a bad habit. Whereas, I don't let one bad swing or one bad throw. I don't let it sneak by without some sort of commentary. It's okay. Right. Did you feel that? Do you understand what you did right, wrong? Let's fix it. And because baseball's a repetition thing, you got to do it. And I tell my kids, every single repetition is like you putting a brick on the wall. You start from scratch and you put a brick on the wall. Every improper repetition that you do, you got to pull one off. And it takes 1,500 perfect repetitions for something to become a reaction.
Do you think that for some of your players, or for guys just in general, COVID, for those kind of working on their skills, has it, I hate to say it, but like a blessing in disguise where they've been able to really focus because there's obviously less distractions right now?
Oh, yeah. Well, shouldn't say distractions.
Look, there's exceptions to the rule, but
there's Fortnite. That's the exception to the rule. These little boogers, all they do is play Fortnite, and they Instagram each other and do all this non-TikTok stuff. I don't even know what the heck are video games. What the heck are those? No, but what I told my players, because I'm very upfront with them. I said, look, Canadian baseball players are a minimum of a year, most likely 2 years behind the Americans and the Latin American players with regard to their player development. I said, you guys have an opportunity in a stress-free environment, meaning you're not trying to make a team because you already made the team. You're not trying to win a game because there is no game. You have an opportunity here to undo years of bad habits, to retrain your body to react in a proper way, take advantage of it. You have an opportunity to be in the best fitness shape of your life when this COVID thing breaks and we get back to work. Take advantage of the opportunity. I basically told him, I said, you don't have to go to school. You probably don't have to do chores because most of the kids I know these days don't even know what chores are. So I said, take advantage of it. You are a professional athlete right now. Your body and your mind are your job. Make it happen. And most of my kids have said, okay, I'll take that challenge. And they've done some positive things.
That's great to hear. And let's end it on a positive. On that note, Greg, man, I appreciate your time. As always, thank you so much.
My pleasure.
It's time to make the podcast a little bit colder. We're going to jump on the ice with my NHL predictions. I'm going to give you the two teams that are matched up and who I think will be the winner. Feel free to send me your comments and who you think will win. But as a bonus, I'm also going to give you my final four and who I think will come out on top as this year's Stanley Cup champion. Kicking off the predictions, I want to remind you that this first round is going to be 5-game series. We're going to start in one of the hub cities with the Edmonton Oilers facing the Chicago Blackhawks. The Blackhawks took 2 of 3 against the Oilers, but that regular season was a long time ago. And those games were pretty high scoring and kind of ugly. But I think this time around, you're going to see the Edmonton Oilers being able to knock out the Chicago Blackhawks. From there, we're moving to Nashville and Arizona. In a lot of these series, you're going to hear me talk about it coming down to defense and goaltending. And in this case, Arizona has the better defense by far. And I think they get the slight edge in net as well. So I'm taking the Arizona Coyotes to upset the Nashville Predators. To Vancouver, where the Canucks take on the Minnesota Wild. Both teams are high scoring, but again, I give the edge in net and on defense to the Minnesota Wild. So look for them to come out of that series. To Winnipeg and Calgary. I got to tell you, I was on the phone with Brad Ralston out of Calgary, and he guaranteed me that the Flames would beat the Jets in this round. So although I love my Jet fans, I'm going to go with Calgary, but not just because Brad said so, because I think their penalty killing is probably one of the best, if not the best, in the league, and their edge in net will give them enough to get by the Jets in the first round. The next series, I think, is the one that you can put your money on, is going to go 5 games. The Florida Panthers against the New York Islanders. I don't like Bobrovsky in net. I think he's inconsistent for the Panthers, and I think that will give the Islanders enough chances to score to win this tight series against Florida. To my hometown and another one of the hub cities. I don't think in hockey the home ice advantage plays as big a role as it does in some other sports, but I have a feeling about Toronto this time around against the Columbus Blue Jackets. I think they're a more well-rounded team. I think they have more offensive power than Columbus does. And I'm going to tell you, don't be surprised if you see an outstanding series from the Leafs goaltender, Frederik Andersen. Look for Toronto to beat the Columbus Blue Jackets in that matchup. Montreal and Pittsburgh. Well, I want to root for the Canadiens, but I just think Pittsburgh is too powerful and too experienced this year. And I think you're probably going to see a sweep in that one. Maybe Montreal can steal one game if they're lucky. Lastly, the New York Rangers against the Carolina Hurricanes. The Hurricanes are solid in net, and you know how I feel about good goaltending. I'm looking for Carolina. I'm really liking Carolina in this matchup, so look for the Hurricanes to beat the Rangers. Now, I promised you some bonus coverage. So, my final four: Colorado, Boston, Philadelphia, and Vegas. And if I'm giving you a way too early Stanley Cup pick, I'm going with the Colorado Avalanche. Let me know your thoughts in the comments. Next up is part 4 of the debate I never wanted to have, but you pushed me and you pushed me, so now we're talking about it. Part 4 of Jordan versus LeBron, we dive into statistics. Now, this is one where it gets a little bit tricky, because when we're talking about statistics, it's a little bit relative. So let's go through the raw data first. Points. We know Michael Jordan had over 30 points per game. He leads it there. LeBron gets the edge in assists and rebounds, where he averaged about 7.5 versus Jordan's 5.5 and 6. Steals and blocks actually both go to Jordan, 2.5, 1. And field goal percentage goes to LeBron at 50%, just over 50%, where Michael Jordan was just under 50%. Free throws by a wide margin, Jordan 10 points better, and turnovers, where Jordan had about 1 less per game. Now, here's why it gets tricky. We're going to dive into context. So LeBron James is a 6'8", 260-pound small forward / power forward. He should get more rebounds. LeBron also brings up the ball and handled the ball more than Michael Jordan did. So he's probably going to have more turnovers. So we're going to dive into those statistics a little bit deeper. Let's start with the rebounds. So as I said, LeBron averaged 7.4, where Jordan averaged 6.2. So you're going to say, well, LeBron's the better rebounder. However, let's add context like size and position. A shooting guard is less likely to be in a position to rebound versus a small forward or power forward. I bring the example of Brook Lopez, who averages 6.4 rebounds per game for his career, and Jason Kidd, who averaged 6.3 rebounds per game. That's a center versus a point guard. So although statistically Lopez has the edge, I think we could all agree, based on context of position, Jason Kidd was probably the better rebounder. The next up that we want to look at is shooting percentage. So when we look at shooting percentage, Michael Jordan is just behind LeBron James, 49.7% versus 50.4%. However, again, context. If you look at the best shooting percentages in the league history, you have guys like DeAndre Jordan and Tyson Chandler, who are first and I believe fourth, but that's because most of their shots were inside of a foot or they were dunks. So of course they're going to have a higher shooting percentage. If you take a look at LeBron James and you take out shots outside of 3 feet, so basically we're eliminating the dunks and easy layups on fast breaks, in the regular season he shot 37.5%. In the playoffs, 35.9%. That's very, very low. There's no portion of Michael Jordan's game where he ever shot that low. In fact, when you look at LeBron's shooting percentages outside of 3 feet through the years, it's 37. Starting in 2014, 2015, it's 37, 35, 37, 37, 35, 36. He is not a great outside or mid-range shooter. So those are things we got to look at when we're looking at statistics. Now, if you want to dive into more advanced analytics and we start looking at player efficiency rating, well, Jordan led the league 7 times in efficiency. He was in the top 3 10 times. The regular season, 27.9 was first. Playoffs, 28.6 ranked him first. Versus LeBron, 6 times led the league, 9 times was in the top 3, and 27 and 23 put him in second place in both of those categories. Win share. Jordan led the league in win share 8 times to LeBron's 5. Top 3, Jordan was there 11 times, LeBron 6. During the regular season, 25.05, which puts him at first, this is Jordan, and 25.53 or .2553, which puts him in first. LeBron, 23.45, which would have put him in sixth in that category, and .2436, which would have put him third in wins per 48 in playoffs, 48 per 48 minutes, in the playoffs. I know I have a lot of statistics to go through, so if I seemed a little rushed, I'll try to slow myself down, and I'll get to the point eventually, I promise. So, box plus minus. Jordan led the league 10 times versus LeBron's 5. He was in the top 3 11 times to LeBron's 10. In the regular season, 9.22, which ranks him first. In the playoffs, 11.14, which ranks him first. LeBron, 8.94, 10.16, both ranking second to Michael Jordan. What about value over replacement? Here's where LeBron gets the edge. Both led the league 9 times. Top 3, Jordan 11, LeBron James 13. In the regular season and playoffs, Jordan is second to LeBron in both of those categories, regular season and the playoffs. But again, when we look at value over replacement, that's where some of the longevity comes into play. LeBron played longer, so he had more opportunities to lead the league. If you look at the top value over replacement seasons, however, Jordan owns 5 of the top 7. LeBron has 1. So whose career was better statistically when it comes to value over replacement? If we look at it from a per game standpoint versus a total career standpoint, it's actually Jordan who is first in both regular season and playoffs when it's value over replacement per game. And then to some more statistics in the regular season, per Jordan first, playoffs first, win shares per 48, regular season, Jordan first, playoffs first, box plus minus, regular season, Jordan 1, playoffs, Jordan 1, value over replacement per game, Jordan 1 in the regular season and the playoffs. When we look at it within context, as I mentioned before, when we're looking at statistics based on your position. So rank among small forwards. Where does LeBron finish? In terms of points, he's second. Assists, he's first. Rebounds, 12th. Steals, 9th. Blocks and field goal percentage, 17th. And free throw percentage, 107th. However, when we compare that to Michael Jordan versus other shooting guards, Jordan is first in points, 4th in assists, 3rd in rebounds, 3rd in steals, 3rd in blocks, 9th in field goal percentage, and 34th in free throw percentage. So again, head to head is different than when you're comparing them to players of their own position. Jordan again gets the clear edge. That being said, when we look at the overall statistics of who statistically was the better player overall, when we're including shooting and defense and rebounds and assists, and we're putting it into context, because that's very important. Michael Jordan gets the edge and now leads the series 3-1. Next week, we're going to dive into the most difficult one, but I think one of the most important, it's the eye test. And why is that so important? It's tough for people to talk about a player that they've never actually seen play in their era. I have a hard time. I have the most respect for Wilt Chamberlain, but I never got to see him play. I'm very lucky I got to see Bird and Magic and Kobe and Jordan and LeBron. So we're going to dive into what makes the eye test so important and who gets the edge there. Join me next week for that conversation. This week, I'm introducing a new series where I preview a WNBA team in preparation for the upcoming WNBA season. This week, we're starting with my daughter's favorite team, the Atlanta Dream. The Atlanta Dream finished last season and should have had an opportunity for the number 1 overall pick. Because if you're going to finish last, the reward is getting the first overall pick to help boost your team in the upcoming season. So by finishing 8-26 in 2019, you would think they'd have the first overall pick, they would pick Sabrina Ionescu, and they'd have a great chance to rebuild. Unfortunately, the ping pong balls did not work in their favor. Not only did they fall out of first, but they actually fell out of the top 3. This year's draft was heavy on the top 3 picks, not as great after that. And where did they go? To the 4th overall pick. So that was a little tough for them to deal with. Instead of getting the first overall pick, as we thought they would, they've had to retool with some different players that were either behind some other starters on their existing teams, or just were looking for a new opportunity or a change of scenery. And that's where some of their pickups come into play. They started by adding 6'7" Kalani Brown from the Los Angeles Sparks. The Sparks are loaded in the front court, and Kalani was having difficulty getting minutes. So it's the perfect opportunity for her to show what she can do. They then picked up free agent Gloria Johnson from Dallas and Courtney Williams from the Connecticut Sun. I think Courtney Williams is the one that's going to help the most because this team was not great at scoring last season. I'm trying to be nice here. They scored 91.6 points per 100 possessions. That's 24 points less than the Washington Mystics, who won the championship last year. There's a huge opportunity for scoring in Atlanta. Tiffany Hayes, who's been with the franchise for 8 seasons, has only made 1 All-Star game and has been their leading scorer. She needs help, and I really think Courtney's the one to bring it. Now, this team has one thing going for it. So the roster could use some talent. They've tried to do that through free agency and through trades. But the one thing that I think they have that I haven't seen as much from the other teams is chemistry. If you've followed them on social media, and if you're not, you really should, they look like a team of players who really enjoy being together. And a lot can be said for a team's chemistry and a team's makeup that can sometimes overcome talent. Now, do I think they're championship material? No. But do I think will they be a dark horse that may surprise a lot of teams this season? 100%. So watch this season for the surprise Atlanta Dream. Now for the fix. The time has come for your favorite part of the show. And I know it's your favorite part of the show because I get the most feedback and the most emails about the fix. This week, we're talking about the Washington Redskins and their long overdue change of name. Listen, I know what some of you are going to say. When the team was named in 1933, it was meant to honor Native Americans, but it doesn't. I don't know that it did then, and it definitely doesn't do that now. George Preston Marshall at the time was changing his name from the Boston Braves and wanted to keep the logo, and the logo actually looks very similar to that of 1933, and kind of keep that type of team name. However, whether it was throughout the years or looking back historically, the name Redskin is derogatory and it can't be used as a team name. Now, we're going to start debating all the other team names like the Chiefs and the Indians. Heck, we might even start arguing about the Yankees. However, let's stick with the Washington Redskins today and understand that enough people consider this as a derogatory term towards Native Americans. That alone should be enough to convince you that it should be changed. So, the good news is the fix is easy because they've already said they're going to do it. So good for you, finally, Dan Snyder and the Washington Redskins organization. May I suggest the Washington Redhawks? I've heard some other ones, but I really like that. And I've seen a logo for it. I've same color palette. I really like the Washington Redhawks. But hey, that's not the point of this segment. It's the fix. And what are we fixing? The Washington Redskins. So goodbye and good luck moving forward. That wraps up another episode of Sports Fluent. We talked with World Series champ Gregg Zaun. We made our NHL predictions. Jordan versus Lebron, the GOAT, Part 4. We did our WNBA team preview. And in the fix, goodbye to the name Washington Redskins. Remember to follow us on Instagram and Twitter at sports_fluent.